Welcome to the Reframing Eye Care podcast. Today's guests are females that are doing great things in our industry, Dr. Camille Cohen and Dr. Janis James. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sampalis. And congratulations on your Theo Award.
Yes,
thank you so much. It's such an honor to be, nominated by colleagues. So such an honor. I wanted to have, I had Dr. Cohen on in the past, and Dr. James wasn't able to make it, but you guys are doing great things with Eyerie Academics and now recent partnership with VSP. I just wanted to, get you back on, have this inspirational story of, success over the years, female entrepreneurship. So give us some background on what inspired this formation.
So with Eyerie Academics, I love meeting with you because it's kind of full circle. When I first met you and came on, I just opened my franchise office and I told you offhand that, hey, in quarantine, but I'm helping some students prepare for their board exams. And I remember you were like, back up. What did you just say? Mm-hmm. But yes, it just started kind of as a passion project. Dr. James was one of the volunteer doctors who just kind of popped in on some very informal Zoom meetings, just going over organizational skills, how to manage test anxiety, how to really reframe, their thinking while they prepare for exams. That was, of course, a very stressful time with the pandemic and with board exams being canceled. And we had a really high success rate. Those who continued with us over the course of about 2 months, Janis, about 2 months.
Yeah, it was about 2 months.
About 2 months we had a almost 80% pass rate. And I think 80% of those from that group had failed previously. Wow. So with that, I felt like, yay, we're done. This was awesome. But Dr. James came back to me and said, I think we have something here. I think it would be really worthwhile for us to form an LLC, to make Eyerie Academics a thing where we could really continue to support students. For another 2 years, we, still volunteered and helped students where we could. But Dr. James has since had 2 kids since we first started. We both have practices. She has a practice with her husband, Dr. Preston Smith. And I have been still managing my practice on my own. So it's been a little tricky just trying to juggle all of that. Most recently, we have gained a partnership with VSP to kind of help us move along with being able to better support the students.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you did very successful to get these students to pass and then, get VSP's eyes to, want to partner. I mean, that's something to be very proud of in our industry because it's very hard. So as corporate optometrists with your own franchise offices, how do you find time to give back? Because it's a lot of work. I mean, it's usually we're working late hours and we see a lot of patients.
I would say planning and delegating. As Dr. Cohen mentioned, I practice with my husband, and I am definitely the type A person out of the 2 of us. And, in the beginning, I'm trying to tackle everything, do everything, and it just doesn't work. And so delegating things to my husband, designated somebody as our lead tech, delegating things to them absolutely helps. And then planning admin days, planning your days for rest, that's the biggest things. When we first started doing corporate optometry, I got to a point where I told them I'm going to take a day out of the month where I don't see patients and I just do things to make sure the office is running efficiently. And that made a big difference for me. And then when I'm rested, it's easier for me to multitask for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. What about you, Dr. Cohen?
I totally agree. I think what I've learned most is just the value of time. I think that sometimes the biggest mistake we can make is thinking that, one, we have to do everything ourselves, or that if we don't make time for rest, we're going to lose out. But it's the opposite, just like what Dr. James said. When you make space for rest and you prioritize that time, you're able to then pour back in more. I think early on, I recognized I needed a billing company. I think that you and I have talked about that before. So getting a billing company so that I'm not sitting in the office after hours trying to figure that out saved me time, actually saved me money. And that was a huge help, trying to delegate tasks. But also I'm a morning person. I know we've discussed that. So if it doesn't get done in the morning, it's pretty much done. I just kind of give up because I need it done at that time, because I know that my brain works best in the morning. And in the evening, I need that time to recharge and kind of gather myself. I've made it a priority the last few years that after a certain hour, my phone is on Do Not Disturb. Most people who know me know that you're not going to hear from me until the next day if you reach out at a certain hour. So I think just being really diligent with your time management, that's the best way to, continue a work-life balance.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? Work-life balance is a big thing, and studying for boards, being able to take in this information, but even like in practice life, right? There's been times over the years I've been burnt out as well, and you just know that it's going to be there. It doesn't have to be right away. I think that's important as well. As there's doctor shortages and things like that, how can we make our, jobs a lot easier, but also so you're healthy too, so you can take care of people, right? We take care of people. Janis, how do you do all this too with 2 little kids now? And even though you have your admin day at the house, you got to set boundaries too. Be like, I'm not doing this every day. Like my kids are older now, so I'm like, I am not unloading the dishwasher every day. I mean, you guys are old enough. This is your chore. So
yeah, I literally, I don't know. To be honest, I still don't know. I'm still figuring it out. My youngest is 7 months.
Yeah, it's tough.
And so I really still feel like I've kind of had a flow with my 2-year-old. And then when my second came, I just felt like I was flailing a little bit, and, kind of vent a little bit about that to Dr. Cohen, because I'm usually a very organized person and I'm the queen of multitasking. And I kind of got it down with the first one, but now with 2, it's, there's some days where it's literally just not possible. And I've just had to let certain things go. But if they're having a good day and Sesame Street is keeping their attention and I'm feeling inspired, I can actually get some things done for like a half hour. But I'm really still figuring it out. And I think that that's just the beauty of, just kind of, jumping hurdles as life throws you new things and new opportunities, and things just change. You just have to kind of figure it out. Because even when I get it figured out with a 7-month-old, then he's going to start walking, and it's going to be a whole new, challenge about figuring out how to run my household in that point too.
Yeah, I appreciate the honest feedback. I mean, that's when I was in it when they were little. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff you just can't do, and it's not double the work the second; it's kind of exponential.
Exactly.
And yeah, things aren't pretty. So you just go day by day, and I think that's with anything too. With new challenges, you take on a practice, you start working, you maybe switch jobs, and now you're seeing more patients. So, or now you got a workload for at school, and now you have to study for boards.
Right.
So, what are some top hindrances that facing students during the semester when they're preparing for boards, because they have a lot going on, and it just depends where you are in life.
I think a lot of what we're talking about, because what we try to explain to them is if you can't manage these things now, it's going to follow you into your professional life. So I think poor organizational skills, poor time management skills, the inability to really handle the stressors of life or anxiety, because life doesn't stop happening while you're in school. So, we talk to a lot of students where we find that it's not necessarily a blockage with understanding material, but maybe, a parent is, terminally ill. Some of them are raising kids while in school. They've lost family members, or they themselves are dealing with health issues. So, having them make space to acknowledge that these things are affecting them, and seeking counseling when necessary. A huge issue being, poor organizational skills and time management skills. One of the things that, I know we've discussed as well is when I was in school, the only social media we had was Facebook. And for me, that looked like deactivating my account during the semester, right? I ask students now, they name things I've never heard of. They're like 10, 12 or more apps that they have to distract them. And that sometimes means, I'll say to them, have you considered deactivating these accounts? And you would think I'm asking for a kidney. Like it's hard, because that is something they've grown up with. And that's a big difference from previous generations.
It's true. Very true. Yeah. What do you think is like big weakness for students? Like, why are we not seeing high pass rates and things like that?
I think it's a combination of things. I think that distractions are really high on the list. I really do. And then I think that learning in general has changed so much. Before COVID, we didn't have virtual classes, and I do think that while, yes, that is something that is helpful and can be helpful at times, I also don't think that a lot of people learn well or, pay attention well in that type of a setting so I think it's just a combination of things. But I really think that distractions are high on the list. And when I'm talking to students, it also seems like we spend so much time sitting in front of our laptops. A lot of our notes are typed notes. We don't write things down anymore. When I ask students to show me what their notes look like, they just show me highlighted printed materials. So I think a lot of the, note taking, knowing how to organize the things that I don't understand, and focus on those things. I think some of those skills have been lost over time, because when I used to tutor as an optometry student, I actually spent more of my time doing that than actually reviewing the subject material.
Yeah. So, the pearls that you've gotten through optometry school, and how has that followed you into your career to, handle this and practices and just even doing, Eyerie Academics? Give us some insight on that.
I think with school, as far as Eyerie Academics, I think knowing that I was that student who was easily distracted, like I knew to disable Facebook, but I would run Law and Order SVU marathons while studying in bed, right? And then be confused that I'm having a hard time getting through classes. I never had anything organized. I was not good at that. I was the queen of procrastination because it had worked in the past, right? I think that whether undergrad or high school, I could wait to the last minute and still do well. And then you get to this higher level of education where more is really being asked of you or demanded, and you have to shift how you think, right? Now in practice, I'm going to get up earlier and get everything done. But that was a painful lesson I had to learn in optometry school, trying to follow the crowd because everybody else was doing, all-nighters, and I would try to follow that crowd. And I realized like, oh, I'm grumpy and I can't think clearly. I hate this. I remember when I threw papers down and walked out of a study group because I said, I can't do this. And I had to recognize okay, my way is to go to bed and then get up at 3 a.m. because now I've rested a bit and then study. My way is on Saturday to be in the lab as soon as the school opens at 8 a.m. and then get to the library before anyone and then wrap up in the afternoon. I would get so much more done. And then finally learning to become more organized. So that followed me and has helped me now in practice because my staff knows I'm a little neurotic. I'm coming in the morning with a to-do list. I'm going to follow up and say, okay, well, was this done? And if it's not done, then, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn into the Tasmanian devil. Of course, get it all finished. Because it needs to be done now. We need to get this over with. So I'm grateful for the boot camp of going through higher level education because it really does prepare you for the next stage.
Absolutely.
No, I think it's important. Yeah. When I was in optometry school, I'm not a procrastinator, I'm a planner. So I would study ahead of time. I would never pulled all-nighters, but when you say lying in bed watching TV, I have a 13-year-old now that will do homework. And I'm like, you can't watch TV or watch Judge Judy at 3:00 when she gets home. That's going to be turned off anyways, but, and do homework. She said she can handle it. And then, lie in bed and write an essay because they have the computer. So I'm like, these are habits, and I'm going to have her watch this too. These are habits that start now, right? Early, because then it's for future success. Each level is going to get harder, right? High school was easy. College was a little easier for you. Now optometry is going to be harder, right? Now, practice, starting as an employee, then you build it. Now you're a practice owner. It's different levels where you are. And again, for me over the years, it's been tough. But once you do it, it's getting better. So for me, it's been what can I do to improve myself, but my team too, to delegate, to make my life easy. And I'm just like you, Camille, I want to get it done right now, get it done yesterday, move on. And then tomorrow, maybe we do nothing, just see patients.
Exactly.
But Yeah, I mean, but they've improved too. My staff has improved. So how do you tackle like self-improvement? Because personal development, I even tell my kids, like, every day we got to get better.
I think that you can go.
I was literally thinking out loud. You can think, I'll come after you.
I was going to say, for me, it's like really being honest with myself. Like it took a lot of work. I think the next stage was, and you met me at the very start of it, practice ownership, where I was like, I don't want to do this. And I mean, it's been painful the last 4 years. Opening in the heart of the pandemic was very traumatic, but it has definitely caused higher level personal growth for me. And so I had to recognize, sometimes how am I speaking to my staff or my brother, who's my business partner? Because also when you work with family, that's different. On the one side, there's a personal relationship, but then you have to come on over to the business relationship and, always managing what does my tone sound like? Where's this person coming from? Am I listening to them? How can I, improve on my communication skills? Like what we're talking about, like, okay, these things didn't get done. What maybe am I not saying or doing to really translate the importance of this task? So those are things I'm always watching. How can I better improve my communication? How can I better improve how I handle situations, right? We all have those difficult patients. And again, I still am without an office manager or really a full staff. So that's not me, throwing this over into their court. It's me coming out from the room and trying to handle a situation. How can I figure out how to problem solve? So I'm always, and that may look like reading. I love reading. So I love reading certain books. I love Adam Grant. I think that when we did the Eyerie Planner, a lot of it kind of goes back to James Clear's Atomic Habits on what are the small changes you can make every day to better improve yourself. So, a Brene Brown, oh my goodness, like I'm going to read all of these things and then constantly take from that pearls of my own to better improve not only communication in the office, but communication in relationships, right? How do I show up as a better version of myself?
Of course, yeah, better version is always important. We've started to read Atomic Habits in my house, and I tell my oldest, we're going to read this together, whether I'll read it or you read it out loud. It's been tough to keep up on it, but again, they're little, so you just little bit of habits, a little bit of stuff. And the distractions are real with the phones, right? So started to take those apps. I have an app that just turns off their apps.
I love that.
And I said, hey, you've been on this for 3 hours today. I mean, imagine what you could have done in 3 hours to improve yourself, to get, and I said, someone does something 20 minutes a day, it adds up cumulative over the year, and you can become an expert or like one of the best in the world just on small habit changes and things like that. So, let's do that. Let's get through it. And then we can, have our me time, our fun time, whatever we want. We just, I say, get it done first thing in the morning, the stuff you don't want to do.
Right.
But, you've tried to work harder, right? People try to get a fellowship, things like that in optometry, try to expand research, things like that. So tell me about what inspired you to, get your fellowship.
Dr. Cohen inspired me to get my fellowship. I had always wanted to do it. I did the student fellowship when I was a student. I used to love going to Academy. I just, I love that meeting. And Dr. Cohen came to me and said, I think we should do our fellowship. It was October of 2021. I was 9 months pregnant. And she's like, let's do our fellowship next year. And I'm like, okay. And that looked like us getting case reports and writing papers in the beginning of the year for the first deadline. I'm literally holding a newborn, typing on the laptop. We look back at it and say that we were crazy. But it was really great because we were each other's accountability partner. And so, when one of us didn't feel like doing the work, we would say, okay, we said we were going to do this. And Dr. Cohen had a couple of setbacks with hers and she's like, I'm not doing it. I said, listen, typing papers with a newborn. You're doing this. Like, let me get on PubMed and find these articles to help you out so we can do this case report because you're doing it. But it was a great experience. And I remember I reached out to one of my former professors because she was my, what was it? It's called a sponsor. What do they call the person who you have to have?
Like a mentor. Yeah.
Yes, you have to have somebody kind of vouch for you, right? Essentially. And so it was kind of nice talking to old professors. And I just realized, gosh, I am so out of practice on writing case reports and papers. It had been a minute. And I sent a draft to my professor and she sent it back to me. She said, this is going to need some work. It's rough. And I said, well, it's a lot going on right now, but the challenge was nice and it was a great experience. And yeah, I tell people all the time, Dr. Cohen is a big person to help inspire me to do it because I always wanted to. And then I just kept letting the years go by without getting it done.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, such nice, inspiring stories. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually shocked that she agreed because I was like, I know you're super pregnant, but you did a residency, you have most of the points. You want to do this? And then she said yes immediately. I was like, okay, great. And so I think it's really powerful if you can do it with an accountability partner because you are going to encounter bumps in the road. And I think the same thing now that I'm on a committee, the Fellowship Engagement Committee, I see now that most people, the average time is about 3 years. We really did this in about 6 months. And it goes back to what we said, where we were like, if we don't get it done now, we're not doing it. Let's just knock it out. So there were some tears, there were some dark moments, but we got it done.
No, that's great. That's great. It's an inspiring story because listeners for the podcast will be like, well, I'm young. I got 2 kids. I work full time. I can't do it. Well, Dr. James did it. Dr. Cohen did it. They did it and they're busy, right? I mean, they're young females too. And they did it in 6 months, then 3 years. So who cares what everyone else does? Your journey's different. Some might do it shorter, some might do fast. It just depends on your personality, what you want your goals are. Yes. Very high driven goals. You guys have done a great with this Eyerie Academics. I mean, this has been great for the future of optometry, helping young optometrists. Tell us what your future goals are with it now, with maybe like a partnership with VSP, because that could be to the next level. Mm-hmm. What are future goals for that?
I think that we really, our future goals, I think for us, we really, we had volunteers who would come in and say, hey, I can't just keep giving time out, right? Because time is valuable. I can't keep doing this all the time with you guys. I have to get back to work, once things open back up. And our goal really was to provide a platform that we could be able to provide compensation for people's time if they were to come in and lecture or help with a workshop. We really want to see it expand. We invested a lot into publishing our workbooks on our own because we wanted something that was handheld for the students, right? The planner with the habit tracker, with a calendar, and with kind of like a guide on meal prep and then a journal to help manage anxiety. And now a workbook, our kidney workbook that we published this summer, really kind of walks them through how are you studying? How are you putting concepts together? So we wanted to then expand now and have these workshops. And in the next few weeks, we have applications going. We extended our application deadline to September 28th. And then we'll have 6 weeks of about an hour-and-a-half sessions. So about 75 to 90-minute sessions for 6 weeks to kind of put all of this together. We hope that we can not only expand this in optometry, but hopefully in other professional programs, because both of us have met people who said, hey, I never passed the bar. I thought I had it and I just couldn't do it. And a lot of the same concepts translate. So if we can, expand this further, I think it would be really powerful to see, do we change the way that we approach learning, where it's not just linear? There are other ways of really putting information together. There are other ways of gathering your talents so that it's displayed when you are taking an exam.
Excellent. So just tell me what Eyerie means for our listeners. I know you've told me in the past, but there's a meaning behind it. So
Yes. So Eyerie, both of us have Jamaican heritage. Janis's family's from Costa Rica by way of Jamaica, and then my family's from Jamaica. Within the Rastafarian movement in Jamaica, there is a term Eyerie, which means like positive vibes, having a positive outlook. And we just changed it from IRIE to EYERIE. Pun intended. So that really eliciting what would be a positive mindset while learning. So Eyerie Academics.
Yeah, I think positive mindset and in turbulent times is important, right? That's what I tell my kids. You know, we just got to think better. I mean, think positive and we'll have better outcomes. And then some things are out of your control, unfortunately. You just learn how to navigate through it. So I want to thank both of you coming on the podcast for inspiring, you know, young individuals in optometry, but also female entrepreneurs in optometry as well, to kind of go after, you know, their goals, whatever their choices are in optometry. And there are no setbacks. There are no real obstacles. Even if you have kids, you have a practice, you have the pandemic, whatever the case is. So again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much
for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always my pleasure.